Welcome back to KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM, The Joe Miller Show. This show is made possible by the McPherson Group Tax Defense Attorneys, BeatIRS.com, BeatIRS.com, rescuing Americans from IRS tyranny. Well, we just had a great segment with Admiral Lyons talking to us about a number of shocking things, including the assertion that our intelligence agencies have been compromised by the Muslim Brotherhood, asserting that John Brennan, the head of the CIA, is a Muslim, talking about the Muslim Brotherhood's influence on the Obama administration, as well as even the Bush administration, tracing it all the way back to the Clinton administration. Is it any wonder, then, that Muslim holidays are now a public holiday in New York City school districts? No word as to whether or not any Alaskan school districts are going to celebrate Islamic holidays. You know, on that note, we've got a caller. Joe, are you on the line?
Yep.
So, Joe, you called the show last week, too. You're a student in one of the Alaska school districts, right?
Yes, I am.
Do you guys celebrate Islamic holidays there?
No, but Islam, I think, is a growing influence in our schools, and definitely Christianity seems to be fading. It almost seems to be a taboo subject, as Islam is definitely the exact opposite.
Now, at some point in time, maybe you can call back and talk about that, but you dropped off at our office something that was handed out in your class. It looks like a chapter from a book that was photocopied called The Cool War. And I don't know whether you had a chance to listen in, you're probably in class, to Admiral Lyons' discussion about how the current administration is anti-American, doesn't see America as a force for good, but actually sees it as a negative influence in the world today, and that probably is part of the reason that Obama is trying to undercut it. But was this a reading assignment that you dropped off?
Yes, it was. This was an assignment. We were assigned to read it, and we discussed it in class. And in the class discussion, it came up. I'll read you a little excerpt from it. It says...
Before you do that, Joe, what class was this?
U.S. history.
Okay.
It's a required course to take in high school.
All right. Go ahead and read the excerpt that concerns you.
So this excerpt is talking about World War II, and it's talking about why America was fighting the war. And it states, this is not a war against fascism. It's a war for empire.
So that wasn't it, right? I mean, I'm looking at the excerpt right here, too. I mean, it goes on.
Oh, yeah, and then it goes on to state, the U.S., not morally concerned about Hitlerism, just wanted to run the world themselves. It's an imperialist war. And this is the whole, in class, this is basically the attitude of anything we learn about American history. It has been very negative this year, always talking about what America does wrong and that we never know what goes on or has gone on, but they talk about America in such an anti-American way.
What kind of moron would write a book like this suggesting that what America did in World War II was, basically motivated by empire building? Did they miss the point that it was Germany that actually attacked its European neighbors? I mean, I don't think it was America that was the catalyst to that war, was it?
Oh, we didn't really learn about that much. We went over the invasion of Poland very, very shortly, but then we also went on to, talk about how there's another excerpt in here that states about African Americans looking at anti-Semitism in Germany that year did not see their own situation as much different, saying that we were, in a way, just as evil as Nazi Germany.
Because of the way we treated black Americans.
Yes.
So basically saying that our racism in this country was as bad as the Holocaust in Germany.
Yes, and we also talked about it in class. When we were discussing this reading assignment, it was brought up in class that, America was a country of hypocrites at the time, and it was one of a student in my class got, very defensive of this, and it was brought up. A couple of my classmates and myself stated out against this. It was pretty quickly shut down by our instructor, though, but...
The instructor actually agrees with this garbage. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. He teaches this and then beyond. Goes deeper into saying, basically, whatever this is saying, he goes into it deeper in our class discussions. And I am quite vocal against it. A few of my classmates speak out against it, but the way our school system is run right now, in a class, to speak out against a teacher, it's almost as if, you are just trying to pollute the minds of these children and a bunch of other stuff that's just very, disturbing to me.
Now, one of the pages that I saw on this, it has an image of the CIA and it's superimposed on a globe. What was that all about?
Well, it states here on, and I've surfed on that, America today, the leader of a worldwide anti-revolutionary movement in the defense of vested interests, supporting the rich against the poor. We went in to talk about this deeper of basically, how we don't focus on the poor, we ignore poor people. That's how this was, almost taught, that image.
Joe, I'd like to keep you on. We've got a caller that has a question here. Karen, welcome to the Joe Miller Show.
Hi, Joe. Is your young guest also named Joe?
He is.
Joe, not you, Joe, the student Joe. What grade are you in?
I'm a junior.
Oh, so I don't know if you have any requested testing this year, but I'm guessing that everything that you're talking about is a result of this Common Core implementation and those new state standards. Even though they call them not Common Core, that's exactly what they are. Anchorage School District has implemented the Common Core standards. And I would suggest that you and maybe some of your activist friends get together and get a bunch of kids all over the country. You can look this up on Facebook and start with Alaskans Against Common Core. Students all across the country in high school are walking out. They're literally walking out of school instead of taking the test. And I would highly encourage that you get a bunch of friends and do that.
I will gladly do my best to do that. That's probably the next step I'll take here because I speak out so loudly against it. School, every faculty member in that school knows that I speak out against this anti-American attitude, and I would not be opposed to rallying up some of my buddies to view this the same way I do.
Well, it's pretty amazing to me to watch this, Karen and Joe. I mean, when you compare, I went to the public schools, of course, clear back. I graduated in '85. And, there always have been folk that have an ideology left of center that you run into in education. And there's some very, very good teachers out there, too. But as I recall, nobody would have ever have dreamed of making the kind of assertions as I'm seeing in this publication that Joe dropped off. I mean, it is extraordinary, the virulent anti-Americanism that basically it's a rewriting of, the greatest generation and what they did to basically save the world from fascism. Now, they take, then this is what the opposition always do. They take these seeds of truth. There's some evidence that there was some financial benefits that came to the United States. There was actually some financing of German war interest before, we got fully involved in the war. Not a good thing. But the reality of it is we were there. Why? Because fascism was marching across Europe, and if we didn't stop it, was going to march across the Atlantic too, not to mention what was going on in the West with Japan and the axis that they were part of and pushing, of course, their version of fascism. So in any event, Joe, I really appreciate you calling. We'd love to have an update from time to time. Karen, thank you also for your input into this. And we need to keep an eye on education. That's the next generation coming up. If we aren't keeping to account our schools, then what good is what we're doing now if we're just raising a generation of people that are going to be fighting against what America stands for? Stay with us, The Joe Miller Show. John Cox next.